Hello, my name is Rebecca Thompson. I'm 39 years old, and I'm going to tell you the story of how I discovered at 16 that my mother hadn't eaten a full meal in almost 8 years. Before I continue, if this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I read every single comment, and I want to hear your stories too. It was 1991. I was 7 years old, and I genuinely believed that school lunch was just a bonus. Like recess, like art class, something nice the school did because they were generous. I didn't understand that for some kids, it wasn't optional. It was survival. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment on the east side of Milwaukee. The building was old, the kind where radiators clanked all night in winter and became silent right when you needed them most. Our apartment smelled like a combination of things: the lavender soap my mom bought at the dollar store, the slightly musty carpet that never quite dried after it rained, and whatever Mrs. Chen was cooking downstairs, usually something with garlic and ginger that made my stomach growl. My mom, Linda, worked as a seamstress at a bridal shop downtown. She'd leave the house at 6:30 every morning, her fingers already calloused, her eyes tired but determined. I remember watching her pack her lunch every single night before bed, a ritual I found comforting. She'd make a sandwich, usually bologna or peanut butter, wrap it in wax paper, and put it in a brown paper bag with her name written on it in blue pen. I had a little brother, Danny, who was 4. He had these huge brown eyes and a cowlick that refused to stay down no matter how much Mom wetted it with her hand. We shared a bedroom, our twin beds separated by a nightstand we'd found on the curb and repainted bright blue together one summer afternoon. My dad had left when Danny was a baby. Mom never talked about it, and we learned not to ask. Every morning, Mom would wake us up singing. Not a real song, just this made-up melody she'd hum while she braided my hair. "Rise and shine, baby birds," she'd say, her voice soft and warm. Then she'd make us toast, just toast, with butter if we were lucky. Margarine most days, and she'd sit with us while we ate, drinking black coffee from a chipped mug that said "World's Best Mom" that I'd made in school. "Aren't you eating, Mama?" I'd ask sometimes. "Oh, honey, I eat a big breakfast at work," she'd say, waving her hand. "Mrs. Patterson always brings donuts on Mondays." I'm stuffed. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Moms don't lie, right? School was my favorite place in the world, not just because of my best friend Jennifer, or because I loved reading, but because of lunch. The cafeteria ladies, Miss Gloria, Miss Rose, and Miss Betty, knew every kid by name. They wore hairnets and floral aprons and served us food on those segmented plastic trays that I thought were the height of sophistication. The lunch menu rotated, but Fridays were sacred. Rectangle pizza, green beans, fruit cocktail, and a carton of chocolate milk. I lived for Fridays. "You gonna eat those green beans?" Marcus Williams would ask, eyeing my tray. "Every single one," I'd respond, guarding them with my fork. I'd take my time with school lunch. I'd eat slowly, savoring every bite, organizing my tray so that I'd finish with the best thing, usually the dessert or the chocolate milk. Jennifer would tease me about it. "You eat like you're at a fancy restaurant, Becca," she'd laugh. "Because it is fancy," I'd reply, completely serious. What I didn't understand then, what I couldn't possibly have understood, was that school lunch wasn't a bonus for me. It was breakfast and lunch combined. It was my main meal, my only full meal. But I didn't know that yet. At home, dinner was creative. Mom had this way of making it seem like we were having a feast when really we were having rice with butter and a sprinkle of garlic powder, or pasta with ketchup that she called special sauce, or eggs scrambled with whatever vegetables were about to go bad. "We're having breakfast for dinner," she'd announce cheerfully. "Isn't that fun?" And it was fun. We'd sit at our small kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg that Dad was supposed to fix before he left, and Mom would ask us about our day. She always asked specific questions, not just how was school. What book did Mrs. Patterson read today? She'd ask me, did you play with the red truck or the blue truck at recess? She'd ask Danny. She was present, fully present. Even though I now know she must have been exhausted, even though I now know she must have been hungry, aren't you eating, Mama? I'd ask during dinner too, noticing her plate was smaller, or sometimes non-existent. Oh, I had a late lunch, sweetheart, she'd say. I'm still full. You eat up. Growing girls need their food. If you're watching this and you're starting to recognize something in your own childhood, leave a comment below. I want to hear your story. I really do. The first crack in my understanding came during a Tuesday in October 1993. I was 9 years old, 4th grade. It was a regular day, except that Jennifer had stayed home sick, so I was eating lunch alone. I took my tray mac and cheese, carrots, applesauce, and milk and sat at our usual table. I was halfway through my mac and cheese when Miss Gloria, one of the cafeteria ladies, came and sat down next to me. "Hey there, Rebecca," she said, her voice gentle. She had kind eyes, wrinkled at the corners from years of smiling. "Hi, Miss Gloria. Where's your friend today?" "Jennifer's sick. She has strep throat." Miss Gloria nodded, then paused. She seemed to be choosing her words carefully. "Honey, I've been wanting to ask you something. You always get the school lunch, right?" "Yes, ma'am. Every day. It's my favorite part of school." She smiled, but it was a sad smile. I didn't understand why. Do you eat breakfast at home before school?" I thought about it. "Toast. Just toast." "Yeah, I have toast and dinner." "Yeah, we have dinner together. Last night we had scrambled eggs and rice. It was really good." Miss Gloria was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her apron pocket and pulled out 2 small cartons of milk. "I want you to take these home," she said. "For you and your brother." "Oh, I can't." "Miss Gloria, that's stealing." "No, baby, I'm giving them to you." "It's not stealing if someone gives you something." I took the milk cartons, confused but not wanting to be rude, and Rebecca, she touched my shoulder softly. "If you ever need extra food, you come find me, okay? We always have extra, always." I nodded, not understanding why her eyes were shiny with tears. That night, I gave the milk cartons to Danny. We drank them like they were liquid gold, sitting on our bedroom floor, and I felt like I'd won some kind of prize. But Miss Gloria's question stuck with me. Why had she asked about breakfast? Why had she looked so sad? I started noticing things after that. Small things that I'd never paid attention to before. I noticed that when Mom packed her lunch the night before, sometimes she'd pack 2 sandwiches but only put one in the bag. The other would stay in the fridge. "That's for my dinner," she'd say if I asked. But then I'd look in the fridge the next day and the sandwich would still be there. 2 days later, it would be gone, but not because Mom ate it. She'd give it to Danny and me as an after-school snack. I noticed that on Sundays, when we'd have our big meal of the week, usually chicken legs that were on sale, rice, and canned green beans, Mom would take the smallest chicken leg, the one that was more bone than meat. "I like the crispy skin," she'd say, "and the little ones have more skin." I believed her then. But that didn't explain why she'd spend 10 minutes eating something that should have taken 2 minutes. I noticed that Mom always wore the same 3 outfits to work, rotating them carefully. But Danny and I always had new clothes at the start of each school year. One didn't realize until years later that those clothes came from the Goodwill, carefully selected, washed, and ironed until they looked almost new. I noticed that our apartment was always cold. Mom would say, "Fresh air is healthy," and we'd wear sweatshirts inside. I didn't connect this to the fact that keeping the heat low meant a smaller electric bill. I noticed all these things, but I didn't connect them. They were just Mom being Mom. Mom who liked crispy skin. Mom who loved fresh air. Mom who was practical. 5th grade came and went. 6th grade, 7th. I was 13 when the second crack appeared. It was during lunch. Naturally. I was sitting with Jennifer and two other friends, Sarah and Amanda. We were talking about what we were getting for Christmas, something I usually stayed quiet about because our Christmases were modest. One gift each, usually something practical like shoes or a winter coat. Amanda was going on and on about the list she'd given her parents: a CD player, a new bike, platform shoes, a denim jacket. "What about you, Becca?" Sarah asked. "What did you ask for?" I shrugged. "I don't know yet. Probably books." "Books?" Amanda wrinkled her nose. "You can get those from the library." "I like owning them," I said defensively. Jennifer, God bless her, changed the subject. But after lunch, as we were walking back to class, she pulled me aside. "You okay?" "Yeah, why?" "I don't know. You got quiet when Amanda was talking about Christmas." I hesitated. Jennifer was my best friend. We'd known each other since kindergarten, but we'd never talked about money, about the fact that her house was bigger than my apartment, about the fact that she had her own bedroom, about the fact that she got multiple presents on Christmas and birthdays. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Of course. Do you eat breakfast before school?" She looked at me strangely. "Yeah, usually cereal, or sometimes my mom makes pancakes." "Why? And you eat dinner?" "Becca, what's going on? Just, what do you eat for dinner?" "I don't know, different things. Last night, we had pork chops, mashed potatoes, and salad. The night before, we had spaghetti with meatballs. Sometimes we get takeout, Chinese or pizza." "Why are you asking me this?" "Pork chops, mashed potatoes, salad, meatballs, takeout. These were not things we had at our house. These were luxuries, restaurant foods, special occasion foods. Do you ever just have eggs and rice for dinner?" I asked quietly. Jennifer's face changed, softened. "No, Becca, we don't." And that's when I knew. That's when the truth started creeping in, like cold water seeping under a door. We weren't having creative dinners. We were having poor dinners. We weren't having breakfast for dinner as a treat. We were having eggs because eggs were cheap. School lunch wasn't a bonus, it was a necessity. And my mother, my beautiful, strong, selfless mother, was lying to me every single day to protect me from this knowledge. That night, I watched her more carefully. I saw how she moved around the kitchen, making Danny and me plates of mac and cheese from a box, the cheap kind that cost 33 cents at the store. I saw how she made herself a cup of tea and sat down with us. "Aren't you eating, Mama?" The same question I'd been asking for years. "I ate at work, baby. Mrs. Patterson brought in lasagna today. I'm absolutely stuffed." But I looked at her face this time, really looked, and I saw the lie. Not in her words, but in her eyes. In the way she held her mug of tea with both hands like it was a meal. In the way she looked at our plates with something that wasn't quite hunger, but wasn't quite not hunger either. Satisfaction. She looked satisfied. Not because she'd eaten, but because we were eating. I couldn't sleep that night. I laid in my twin bed, listening to Danny's soft snoring across the room, and I thought about Miss Gloria's questions from 2 years earlier. I thought about Jennifer's pork chops and meatballs. I thought about my mother's paper bag lunches, and I thought about all the times she'd said, "I already ate." When had I ever actually seen her eat a full meal? The answer made my stomach hurt. I couldn't remember. Not once. If this story is hitting home for you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. I became a detective after that night, a secret investigator of my own life. I started looking through the kitchen cabinets when Mom was at work and Danny was watching TV. We had rice, lots of rice, dried beans, pasta, oatmeal, peanut butter, bread, canned vegetables, eggs in the fridge, butter, margarine, milk, the cheapest kind in the plastic jug. What we didn't have: meat, except for whatever was on sale, fresh fruit, except occasionally bananas, cheese, except for the government kind that came in a block, snacks, cookies, chips, soda. I started watching Mom pack her lunch. Every night, the same ritual. Make the sandwich, wrap it in wax paper, put it in the brown bag, write her name on it. One night, I decided to test something. Mama, can I have a sandwich for my bedtime snack? Of course, baby. She made me one. Bologna and mustard, the sandwich she'd been about to pack for herself. Then she went to make another one for her lunch bag, but we were out of bologna. I'd watched her use the last 2 slices for my sandwich. She stood there for a moment, looking into the fridge. Then she took out the peanut butter and made herself a peanut butter sandwich instead. Except she didn't. She spread the peanut butter thin, so thin I could see the bread through it. And then she wrapped it and put it in her bag. My heart was pounding. I ate my sandwich in my room, but it tasted like guilt. The next day was a Thursday. I told Jennifer I needed to do something at lunch and I'd meet her after. Instead of going to my usual table, I went to the cafeteria office. Miss Gloria was there, refilling napkin dispensers. Miss Gloria. She turned, surprised. Hey there, Rebecca. You okay, honey? Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you remember when you asked me about breakfast and dinner a couple years ago? Her face grew serious. I do. Why did you ask me that? She set down the napkins and knelt down to my level, even though I was almost as tall as her by then. Because, sweetheart, part of my job is to make sure kids are getting enough to eat. And sometimes I notice patterns. What kind of patterns? Kids who eat their entire lunch, every bit of it, no matter what we're serving. Kids who never throw anything away. Kids who ask for seconds. Kids who... She paused. Kids who treat school lunch like it's the most important meal of their day. My throat tightened. Is it bad? I whispered. To eat everything. Oh, honey, no, 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 no. She put her hand on my shoulder. There's nothing bad about it, but it tells me that maybe things are tight at home. And there's no shame in that. None. My mom works so hard, I said, and I felt the tears coming. She works so hard, Miss Gloria. I know, baby. I know she does. I don't think she eats her lunch. Miss Gloria's face crumpled slightly. What makes you say that? I never see her eat. She says she eats at work, but I don't think it's true. Miss Gloria was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Rebecca, your mama loves you more than anything in this world. You know that, right? I nodded, tears spilling over. And sometimes, when parents love their kids that much, they make sacrifices. Sacrifices their kids don't even know about. Like not eating. Like making sure their babies have full bellies, even if it means their own belly is empty. I started crying then. Really crying. Miss Gloria pulled me into a hug, her apron smelling like industrial soap and cafeteria food, and I cried into her shoulder. What do I do? I asked. Right now, nothing. You're a child, sweetheart. This isn't your burden to carry. But someday, when you're older, you tell your mama that you saw her, that you understood, that her sacrifice mattered. Okay. I nodded against her shoulder. And Rebecca, you keep eating those school lunches. Every bit, you hear me. That's what they're there for. I pulled back and wiped my eyes. Okay, now go wash your face and get to class. And if you ever need to talk, you know where to find me. I did as she said. But something had fundamentally shifted inside me. The veil had been lifted. I couldn't unknow what I now knew. That weekend, I did something I'd never done before. I went to the library not for a book for school, but to look something up. The library had newspapers. I found articles about poverty lines, about food assistance programs, about something called WIC and food stamps. I learned words like food insecurity and working poor. I learned that you could work full-time and still not have enough money for food. That you could do everything right, show up to work every day, pay your bills, keep your kids clothed, and housed, and still have to choose between eating and keeping the lights on. I learned that we qualified for free lunch at school, not reduced price. free, which meant we were below a certain income level, which meant we were officially poor. The word felt heavy in my mind. Poor. We were poor. But how could we be poor when Mom worked so hard, when she never complained? When we had a home and food, even if that food was limited, and she always made sure Danny and I had what we needed for school. This is what poverty looked like when it was dressed up in pride and dignity and a mother's love. It didn't look like the pictures in those library articles, people in shelters, people on street corners. It looked like my mom, packing a nearly empty peanut butter sandwich and calling it lunch. I was 14 when I confirmed my suspicions, absolutely. It was summer vacation. Mom had asked me to run to the corner store to get milk. She gave me exact change, $2.89 for a gallon of the cheap milk. I went, but when I got to the store, I realized I'd forgotten which milk we got. There were so many kinds. I stood in front of the dairy case, trying to remember. Then I heard a voice. Linda Thompson. I turned. It was Mrs. Patterson, the woman Mom worked for at the bridal shop. I recognized her from the one time Mom had taken me to work with her during spring break. Oh, hi, Mrs. Patterson. I'm Rebecca, Linda's daughter. Of course. How are you, dear? Good, thank you. Is your mother here? No, she's at home. I'm just getting milk. Mrs. Patterson smiled, but then her face grew more serious. Rebecca, can I tell you something? Okay. Your mother is one of the most dedicated employees I've ever had. She never misses a day, never complains, works harder than anyone. Thank you, ma'am. I've tried so many times to get her to take her lunch break, to go to the deli down the street, or even just to sit in the break room and eat, but she never does. My heart stopped. What? What does she do during lunch? Mrs. Patterson hesitated. She works through it. Says she'd rather get the work done. I've told her it's not necessary, that she's entitled to a break, but she shook her head. She's stubborn. Your mother? Does she eat her lunch at all? Mrs. Patterson's face told me everything. I don't think so, honey. I've seen her give her lunch to some of the homeless folks who sit outside the shop. She tells them she brought too much food. But Rebecca? Her voice dropped. I don't think she brings too much. I think she brings just enough, and then she gives it away. The floor felt unsteady beneath my feet. Why would she do that? I whispered, even though I knew. Because she's a good person, Mrs. Patterson said gently. And because I suspect she's trying to make every penny stretch as far as it can at home. For you and your brother. I thanked her somehow, and bought the milk. But I walked home in a daze. She wasn't eating at work. She wasn't eating at home. When was my mother eating? The answer was becoming horrifyingly clear. She wasn't. Not really. Maybe a bite here, a bite there, scraps, leftovers. Whatever we didn't finish. That night, I watched her like a hawk. Danny and I had hot dogs and mac and cheese for dinner. Mom had tea. Mama, please eat something, I said. I had a big lunch, baby. Mrs. Patterson brought in sandwiches from the deli for everyone. The lie landed between us like a stone. I looked at her, really looked at her. When had she gotten so thin? When had those dark circles appeared under her eyes? When had her cheeks become so hollow? She'd been disappearing right in front of me, and I'd been too young, too innocent, too trusting to notice. Are you okay, Mama? I asked, my voice shaking. She looked surprised. Of course, honey. Why? You look tired. Well, it's been a long day, but I'm fine. I'm always fine when I have my babies. She smiled, but I saw through it now. I saw the exhaustion, the hunger, the sacrifice, and I didn't know what to do with this knowledge. I was 14 years old. What could I do? If you've ever felt helpless watching someone you love suffer, share this video. Someone else needs to know they're not alone in that feeling. The next 2 years were torture. I watched my mother slowly fade, and I felt complicit in it every time I ate. I tried to eat less, I'd leave food on my plate. Are you feeling okay? Mom would ask, concerned. Just not that hungry. I'd lie. You need to eat. Rebecca drew a growing girl. The irony wasn't lost on me. I tried to refuse seconds when she offered them. There's more mac and cheese, baby. You want some? No thanks, Mama. I'm full. She'd look disappointed, like she'd failed somehow if I wasn't eating enough. I tried giving food to Danny instead, making sure he ate more so at least one of us would be fully fed. But nothing I did made a difference. Mom still didn't eat. She still packed those pathetic lunches. She still gave them away. She still drank tea for dinner and said she was full from work. I started working when I turned 15. Nothing official, I was too young for a real job, but I babysat for neighbors. I helped Mrs. Chen downstairs with her grandkids. I did odd jobs for anyone who would pay me. Every penny went into a jar I hid in my closet. I was saving for something, though I didn't know exactly what. Food for Mom? Maybe. A way to make her stop sacrificing? The summer I turned 16, I had saved $247. It felt like a fortune. I decided to do something with it. Something that would force Mom to eat. I went to the grocery store and bought groceries. Real groceries. Chicken breasts, not just legs. Fresh vegetables, fruit, real cheese. A gallon of good milk. Bread from the bakery. Butter. I bought ingredients for a full meal. I carried those grocery bags home like they were treasure. Danny helped me, asking a million questions. Where'd you get money for all this? I've been saving from babysitting. Does Mom know? It's a surprise. We got home before Mom did. I put away all the groceries and then I started cooking. I'd watched Mom cook a million times. How hard could it be? I made chicken, rice, steamed broccoli, and a salad. I set the table with our mismatched plates and the good napkins we saved for Thanksgiving. When Mom came home from work, exhausted as always, she stopped in the doorway. What's all this? Dinner? I said, trying to sound casual. I made dinner. Rebecca, sit down, Mama, please. She sat, looking confused and maybe a little worried. I served her first, a full plate, chicken breast, rice, broccoli, salad. Then I served Danny, then myself. Let's eat, I said. Mom looked at her plate like it was a foreign object. Sweetie, this is too much. This must have cost. I used my babysitting money. I wanted to make us a nice dinner, but you were saving that for this, I interrupted. I was saving it for this. Now please, Mama, eat. She looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Fear, maybe, or recognition. Like she knew that I knew. I had a big lunch today, she started. No, you didn't. The words came out stronger than I intended. Rebecca, you didn't have a big lunch today. Mama, you don't have big lunches. You don't have lunches at all. Her face went pale. I talked to Mrs. Patterson. I know you work through your lunch break. I know you give your food away. I've been watching you for 2 years, Mama, and I know you don't eat. Danny's eyes got wide. He looked between me and Mom, his fork frozen in midair. That's not Mom tried. Please don't lie to me anymore, I said, and I felt the tears coming. Please, Mama, just, please eat. She stared at her plate. Her hands were shaking. I can't, she whispered. Why not? Because if I start eating like this, if I let myself, we can't afford it, Rebecca. We can't afford for me to eat full meals. The money has to go to you and Danny. You're growing. You need it. I'm fine with. You're not fine. I was crying now, full on crying. You're disappearing, Mama. You're so skinny and tired and you're not fine. Danny started crying too, even though he didn't fully understand what was happening. Mom looked at both of us, her children, crying at the dinner table, and something in her broke. She picked up her fork with a trembling hand and took a bite of chicken, then another. Then she was crying and eating at the same time, and Danny and I were crying. And we were all just sitting there at our wobbly kitchen table, crying and eating together. She ate everything on her plate that night, every single bite. And when she was done, she looked at me with tears streaming down her face and said, "I'm sorry." "For what?" I asked. "For making you grow up too fast, for making you worry, for not being able to give you the childhood you deserved." "Mama," I said, getting up and wrapping my arms around her. "You gave us everything, everything that mattered." We held each other and cried until there were no more tears left. That dinner didn't solve our problems. We were still poor. Mom still had to make impossible choices. But something had shifted. The secret was out in the open now, and somehow that made it bearable. From that day forward, I made a rule. I would watch Mom eat at least one full meal a day. I got a job at a fast food restaurant as soon as I turned 16 and a half. Minimum wage, but I got free meals on my shifts. I'd bring home food for Mom. I'd lie and say they were going to throw it away if I didn't take it. She knew I was lying, but she also knew I wouldn't back down. So she ate. Slowly, very slowly, she started to look healthier. The dark circles faded. Her cheeks filled out a little. She had more energy. Years passed. I graduated high school, got a scholarship to community college, worked my way through. Danny did the same a few years later. Mom kept working at the bridal shop until she was 58, when arthritis in her hands made it impossible to sew anymore. By then, Danny and I were both working. We took care of her the way she'd taken care of us. She's 62 now, still living in Milwaukee, though we moved her to a better apartment. She has a full fridge. She has heat in the winter. She has enough. Last month, I visited her for her birthday. I brought her favorite meal, chicken, rice, and broccoli, the same meal I'd made that night when I was 16. We sat at her kitchen table, a new one, sturdy, no wobbling, and ate together. "You know what I think about sometimes?" she said, out of nowhere. "What, Mama? That dinner you made me? The one where you made me eat? I remember. I was so ashamed that night. Ashamed that my baby had figured it out. Ashamed that I'd failed to protect you from knowing how bad things were. You didn't fail, Mama, but I did. I wanted you to have a normal childhood. I wanted you to think school lunch was just a bonus, not a necessity. I wanted you to think we were fine. We were fine," I said. "Because of you. Because you made sure we were fed and loved and safe." She reached across the table and took my hand. "You saved my life. You know, that night when you made me eat, I don't know how much longer I could have kept going like that. You saved mine first," I said. "Every single day, for years, you saved mine." We sat in silence for a moment, just holding hands. Then she smiled, that same warm smile from my childhood, and said, "The chicken is perfect, by the way. You've gotten good at this. I learned from the best. I'm 39 years old now. I have my own kids, 2 daughters, ages 8 and 10, and sometimes, when they don't finish their dinner, I feel a flash of something, not anger, more like awareness. They don't know what it's like to be hungry. They don't know what it's like to look forward to school lunch because it's the only real meal of the day. They don't know what it's like to watch your mother disappear because she's literally giving you the food off her plate, out of her mouth, out of her life. And that's exactly what my mother wanted. She wanted me to not know. She wanted me to be innocent. She wanted me to think school lunch was just a bonus. So when my daughters leave broccoli on their plates, I don't get mad. I just think about Mom, and I say a quiet thank you to her, wherever she is, for making sure I never had to leave broccoli on my plate because I was too full. Because I was never too full. I was just full enough, and that was her gift to me. If you grew up thinking school lunch was a bonus, if you grew up with creative dinners and parents who weren't hungry, if you grew up with sacrifices you didn't understand until years later, I want you to know something. Your parents weren't failing you. They were loving you the best way they knew how. That bologna sandwich wasn't poverty. It was love wrapped in wax paper. Those hand-me-down clothes weren't shame. They were dignity stitched together by hands that never stopped working. That I'm not hungry wasn't a lie. It was the truest expression of love your parents knew how to give. And if you finally understand this now, if you're sitting here with tears in your eyes because you finally see what your parents did for you, call them today, right now. Don't wait. Tell them, I saw, I understood. Thank you. Because the greatest gift you can give a parent who sacrificed everything is simply to acknowledge that you know that it mattered, that they mattered. My mother spent 8 years going hungry so I wouldn't, and I spent the next 20 years making sure she'd never have to again. That's what love does. It cycles, it returns, it multiplies. And it starts with something as simple as a school lunch tray, filled with rectangle pizza and green beans and chocolate milk, that some kid somewhere thinks is just a bonus. But it's not. It never was. If this story touched you, please share it in the comments below. Tell me, what did your parents sacrifice that you didn't understand until later? What was your school lunch moment? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. And please, if your parents are still here, tell them today. Tell them you know. Tell them it mattered, because it did. Thank you for listening to my story. Until next time, and if your mom or dad is still alive, call them. Today, right now. Tell them you love them. Tell them you finally understand.